In today's episode, I'm going to be talking with a seasoned professional in the health supplement direct response copywriting field. Her name is Nicole. And if you've ever wondered about working with a copywriter, we're going to be talking about things like how to know if you're ready to invest in direct response copywriting, how to spot a good copywriter, what to expect when working with a copywriter, and what you can do to get the best results, and a lot more bonus tips. Stick around for this episode because Nicole has something special for you at the end. Welcome to Health Business Mastery, the Creative Thirst podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Hewitt. Welcome to Creative Thirst podcast. Today we have a special guest, Nicole Piper. Nicole is a direct response copywriter who specializes in writing for natural health and wellness businesses. She writes long-form sales letters, traffic driver emails, advertorials, and lead gen webinars. Before she became a copywriter, Nicole was a brand marketer. She helped build multi-million-dollar businesses around the world for companies like MTV, Nickelodeon, The Sharper Image, and even Pokemon. Nicole is one of a small group of copywriters who trained under Paris Lampropoulos, one of the A-list copywriters in the direct response alternative health industry. Her client list includes companies like Advanced Bionutritionals, the Healthy Back Institute, Natural Health Sherpa, Green Valley Natural Solutions, and Healthy Cell. When she's not writing copy, Nicole helps health coaches, practitioners, and doctors with their positioning and lead gen funnels. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bobby. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise.
So today's show, I thought we could look at or discuss really some of the questions that people really have in mind, but nobody really ever talks about. Questions like, how do we hire a copywriter? What do we do with them? How do we make sure it's a successful engagement when we hire a copywriter? Copywriting is such an important key lever in selling health supplements and increasing conversions and increasing average order value. A lot of people think it's the only lever. There's more levers than that. But a lot of people in the industry either kind of start out writing the copy themselves and quickly realize that something's not working, I need to hire somebody. And they don't really know how to do that or what are some of the pitfalls of that. And that's kind of what I'd love to talk to you about today.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So one thing I love that you said there is how they realize, if they've been doing the copy on their own, they realize that they need someone else. And that to me sounds like a person who understands the value of good copy and working with a copywriter. So, there is a big difference between, some people kind of see, a copywriter as kind of as a pen for hire. But when you're working with, top tier copywriter, it really is an investment, because if they're writing a control copy for you, that control can go on for years and years with just maybe some, refreshing of the headline and lead. So it really is a good investment. So you do want to know how to pick a good copywriter, how to, some clues of how to spot a good one, and then how to work with them to really help them give you the best results.
Absolutely. You're totally right. It's kind of like a foundation, right? Because one of the things that kind of, and maybe you disagree, but here's my perspective. Like, what you don't want to do is hire a copywriter, drive some traffic to that for a couple weeks, a month, hire another copywriter, do the same thing, especially when you're starting out. Like you're thinking, I'm thinking and exactly mirroring kind of what you said. It's an investment. It's the foundation of your business. So make sure you hire the right copywriter, make sure it's solid from the beginning, right? And then iterate and build on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things on that. You've got, one thing is you should always be testing, right? So as you know, so you do want to test copywriters. And one great way to do that, if you're looking at a new copywriter to work with, is if you already have a sales page is you can have them write, some traffic driver emails or an advertorial or something to drive traffic to that, so you can get a sense of what their writing is like. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, there really is, quite a learning curve when you're working with a new client, speaking from a copywriter's perspective. So, I it's a lot of research, a lot of work when you're working with someone new and working on a new product. And you kind of get, it takes a little time to get used to each other and figure out like the best working relationship. And if you're like, kind of just going through copywriters, you try them with one thing and then move on to someone else. That's really not the best way of working with a copywriter. So it's good to have a handful, especially if you have, different products, right? But even if you only have one product, you might have a handful of copywriters that you want to try different parts of your funnel with. So the only thing is like, you know, if you do something like on Facebook, that's a really different type of copy. So, I do some Facebook ads, but that's not direct response at all. You have to be super careful about what you're doing on Facebook. So I would say most direct response copywriters, focus more on the more direct response type of copy, those elements where you can really be compliant, of course, but you don't have to have the same restrictions, the same kind of um, limitations that you have on Facebook.
Completely agree. Yeah, Facebook is a totally different animal. So let's say you're a health entrepreneur. You have a line of supplements, or maybe two or three, even. Not a whole line, maybe even just one. How do you know if you're ready to invest in a direct response copywriter engagement?
Yeah, great question. So one is, I think, what we talked about before is knowing the value of good copy and what that can do for your funnel. You want to really know what makes your product unique. That's going to be something that's very important. That the copywriter can often find something unique about an ingredient for you, but you really should have a good sense of what makes your product different, right, from your competition. Really important now is knowing your audience. So that is really key because in many ways, if a copywriter knows your audience really well, like knows what's going to push their buttons or what's going to interest them, in some ways that's almost more important because so much of writing copy is about really, building that rapport with the audience, right? And then you want to hit those important points with them, and that's going to make them much more receptive to your product. And having a responsive list. So those are really I think the four main things that, that really kind of signal that, okay, you're ready to start working with a copywriter and making that investment.
So if you don't know those things, if you're maybe just starting out, it's not quite ready the time to invest in a direct response copywriter, or do you
Well,
disagree?
you know, you could, but then you're really, really just testing, and you have to stay open-minded because there can be a lot of things that probably need to be tweaked.
Hmm.
Like the offer, or, I mean, if you don't have an audience, you're gonna have to build an audience, right? So otherwise you're going out to cold traffic, which is the hardest. And you might want to start with something that's a little easier to start building up that list.
So if you don't know those things, or do you lean on, or would a client be leaning on the copywriter to kind of do the research and find out those things, or is the copywriter kind of looking towards the client to say, no, like, you should know your audience. It's not my job to tell you who your audience is.
Yeah, well, then you're really going to want a copywriter who has broader marketing experience. So you're bringing them on more as a consultant, and there are definitely copywriters like that. But then this isn't just a simple. This isn't just a copy project on its own. It's really more of like, you need someone who's really going to help, do the due diligence of, understanding your market, your product, doing all that sort of thing to really, build the foundation that the copy is going to work with, right?
Right, that goes back to where we started, right? That investment foundation. So at that level, that's a different type of copywriter, right? So now we've already uncovered like two different types, and there's more than two, obviously. But yeah, so what are some of the things that uh, an entrepreneur would look at to kind of spot a good copywriter? Say this one is good for my situation versus this other one who has maybe it's a completely different situation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. There are different types of copywriters. Like if you're writing content, so you're starting off with content, that's going to be very different from, if you want sales copy, meaning like a sales letter, a long form sales letter. And that's like, that's really, so that's the big kahuna, right? When it comes to supplement copies, having a high performing sales letter or VSL type of thing. So, obviously referral is really the best. Like if you can get a good copywriter referred to you, that's really good. But even so, in that case, you still want to check out things like samples of their copy. So you want whatever is going to be the closest to the type of copy you want written. So if you're going to have, if you want a copywriter to write a sales letter for you, you want to look at the different sales letters. You want a few examples of sales letters that they've written, and maybe they've written the entire funnel. So you'd want to look at all of that. But the important thing here is you have to look at it with a critical eye. So, you're going to look at the sales letter, and the first thing you want to know is as you're reading it, does the headline grab your attention? Is it something where you're kind of like, oh, I have to read more? And then does the lead really pull you in? So you want to like, pretend you're a consumer for this product or potential consumer. And is that sales letter really doing what it should for you? You know, and one thing, there's a there's a review process that we use, copywriters, we call it like the cub review. So it's basically you're looking at anything that's confusing, unbelievable, or boring, right? And if there are any things like that in the copy, then that writer, might not be as good as they could be, or they might need a little bit more direction. Maybe they're not backing up their claims with enough proof. Um, and you want to see, are there parts of the copy that really excite you? So you want to have, bits in that copy that, cause that dopamine rush, right? Where a person's like, ooh, I got to find out more. So are they doing those open loops and doing things that are really keeping you engaged in the copy?
Do you think it's a good idea to have like other people read the copy, like other family members or friends, or do you think that gets too like subjective? Right? Because um, I kind of I'm of both minds of this, right? Because on the one point, it's like, well, the CEO's wife should not be deciding what the website looks like. Same thing with the copy, But all those metrics, like you pointed out, they're very, very subjective, right? Does it grab you? Is it confusing? One person might find something confusing, another person might not. One person might find something boring, another person might not. I mean, you're never really going to know until you bring it to market and test it with an audience and traffic. But evaluating it beforehand, um, if you're not really savvy and you haven't been exposed to a lot of this long form direct response copywriting, you're not going to be able to tell. And the counter argument is I don't think your friends and family are going to be able to tell either. So
Well,
what are your thoughts there?
yeah, it's really it's what you're looking for is your own reaction to it. So not really looking at it in terms of, okay, um, are the transitions good here? You really want to look at it more like do a quick read of it, and does it, Paris always says, like, does it make you tingle? Like, does the headline make you tingle? Is it something where it's kind of like, yeah, I really want to know more about this? So, you kind of want to come at it fresh. And, you know, as a writer, I always have people read my copy. Because I want to know how it lands, especially because if you're a writer, you've got your head is in it for so long that you know y- you almost you don't have that objectivity anymore, right? It's hard to keep that once you know so much about the product, you've done all the research and all that. So I always have other people read my copy and just say, how does this land for you? You know, but you're absolutely right. It's like, you know, you could have 10 people reading it, and they're all, like people that obviously that that you can ask to read it, and they can all say, oh yeah, this is a total winner. And then it doesn't hit with the market for whatever reason. Like you think it's going to do much better than it actually does, and vice versa, right? So yeah, ultimately the market decides, but you should be able to get a little bit of an inkling from the copy that you're reading. One of the things that when I started, I still do this all the time, when I'm reading just like an email subject line, doesn't make me want to open it. Just the stuff that's coming through my inbox. So I'm like, okay, this made me want to click. Why? I kind of want to do that self analysis of why did I want to click on that? And then it's the same thing if, because I buy product through direct response, right? So if there's something that I want to buy, so what was it about that copy that made me want to buy? You know? So it's raising your awareness of what's making you curious and making you want to buy or open up the email.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really just kind of being attuned to those things. Uh,
Mm,
as a copywriter, one of the things that they tell you is to kind of read your copy out loud,
oh yeah.
as opposed to in your head, right? So, do you recommend that when someone is evaluating a copywriter's work for them also to read it out loud, or is that doesn't apply?
I don't think that applies so much for when you're evaluating a copywriter's work, because chances are the person who is going to be reading the copy, they're not going to read it out loud, you know? So you want to be as close to the consumer as you can be, um, and what their experience is going to be. Now, when I have other people, or when I'm again going back to when I'm editing my own copy, I actually have someone read it out loud to me. So I'll read it out loud myself, but then I want someone who hasn't read the copy at all, doesn't have any experience with the copy, to read it, because that's when I can hear, like, if there's if there's like a transition that's off, or if the cadence is wrong, or if there's something that really needs to be smoothed out, you know so because someone who's reading it fresh, they're they haven't been in my work head.
Yeah, yeah, especially if it's going to be a VSL, you
Yeah.
want to make sure it's smoothly delivered, and if there's like a couple of speed bumps, there's a few resources online that you can upload text to, and it will kind of read it back to you. They're not 100% great. I mean, the best thing is a person live reading it to you, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now there are a few other things also. So once a person wows you with their copy, then you want to get on a call with them, right? And you want to really see what kind of questions they're asking, right? So a good copywriter is going to ask questions about the overall strategy. So they'll want to know the funnel. You know, what kind of copy is going to lead a person to this, if anything. And so where does this copy fit in the whole funnel, right? They also should be asking, obviously you're going to ask questions about the product. Is it a new product? Is it existing? Does it already have a control out there, that sort of thing? Is it backed by a guru? And they're going to want to ask, or they should ask, what makes it different. So you really, the copywriter should have you sell them on the product. So you want to be able to really show the copywriter what is great about your product and what makes it different from the competition.
Yeah, and honestly, if you don't have those things kind of already in place, or at least in mind, you probably shouldn't have went to market in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, ideally, like, you have some kind of new ingredient, but there's so many ways to differentiate. And a good copywriter will be able to help you do that, but you should have something to begin with, whether it's the combination of ingredients, it's a new ingredient, it's, the delivery system, whether it's a pill or a liquid or, something that makes it, unique and solves a problem for consumers. So, all of this is about problem solving, right? And so that's really what we're looking at is what problem does your product solve and how does it solve it?
Right. And sometimes you need a combination of those unique things,
Mm,
depending on what's already out there in the marketplace, right? If people have already seen a liquid version of this supplement, like another liquid's not going to make any difference. But if you can combine that with some other process, it's a cold pressed liquid or some other mechanism that adds on top of it, that sort of stacks on top of it. Um, it becomes more unique than just simply what everybody else has.
yeah, absolutely. And when I'm on an intro call with a company, I want to know like how much. The more they can tell me, obviously, the better. Like I have to start feeling excited about the product myself. Um, and if that doesn't happen, I won't want to write for them. But part of it also is, even though they might come up with, some great things that makes their product different, um, a lot of times that won't be my hook. That won't be the big idea that I use. That will be something that I use in the copy eventually, but there could be something completely different that I find in the research that is, a good hook. For instance, this just happened. I talked to a formulator, I talked to the guru, I talked to all the experts who designed the product, and they gave me some great ideas on what makes it different. And then when I dove into the research, I found one little ingredient that actually was there was a special process that the manufacturer used to make this ingredient much stronger and more absorbable by the body. And I thought, holy cow, that got me excited, right? So that's one of the things I used as the key differentiator of this product.
Let me guess, they probably weren't talking about it, right? They probably ignored it. It was like the Slitch beard example,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
That's perfect classic example. That's great.
Yeah, I love.
So the copywriter sent us, speaking from the client's perspective as a supplement entrepreneur, the copywriter sent some samples. They read them over, like these kind of grab me, these don't, right? And now we've gone to the second stage of like, okay, well, how do I know if this is a good copywriter? So we're looking at the questions they're asking us.
Mhm.
Um, should the research be a part of that evaluation? Should the client ask the copywriter, "What is your research like?" And should we or can we evaluate the copywriter based on that answer, or do you think that's not a good area to kind of go down because everybody's kind of different in that area? Copywriters are so different the way they work.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, like I ask the client what kind of research they can give me. Can they, also can they give me competitive information? I want research about the ingredients and competitive information. But I do my own on top of what they give me. So just that example, right? That was perfect. It was like that was my own research that uncovered that. So I love when I'm given studies or whatever about the ingredients, but that to me is just like the tip of the iceberg. I really do a lot more research. So I most of the copywriters that I know actually do a lot of additional research. They don't just rely on what the client gives them. So yeah, I think that that's a big part of it. And I think, yeah, I think a supplement manufacturer or a marketer should ask that question: How much research do you do on your own? I do like a full competitive, a competitive grid of, I try and get every competitor I can. And then I compare like the amounts, the ingredients, the amounts. It's a big research project. I spend weeks doing research before I write any copy.
I love the research process of copywriters. Like one of the like, kind of like the how the sausage is made, like the insider baseball. Like I could totally just geek out on that alone. I love the research angle of it.
Yeah. And actually, one of the really important things is, I think when you're talking to a potential copywriter, um, what kind of information they're asking of you, right? And like, you know, before I can start this project, things like, will I be able to speak to the guru, the formulator, the president of the company, whoever knows the most about the product? Can I speak to customer service people? And can I speak to current clients or customers? So that's the thing. And if the obviously if the product already has some history out there, you want to know what people are saying, and of course you want to look at what people are saying about the competitive product too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So you really get this like full picture of this particular item, what it's supposed to do, what people are saying about how well it works or doesn't work, things that they like and don't like about it, and the same thing with the competitors, because then you can like use all of this stuff in your copy, you know, overcoming objections and all that.
absolutely, absolutely. So if the client comes back to the copywriter and says no for any reason, like you can't talk to customers, you can't talk to the CEO, if any of those are kind of shut down, that's a big red flag for the copywriter, and the copywriter should kind of run for the hills and say, "All right, I don't want to work with you." But what about the other angle of it? What are some red flags for the client when asking about what their process is or how to spot a good copywriter, or any red flags up to this point?
Well, I think, if they're not asking for some of this information, if they're not asking about the funnel, the overall strategy of the product, if they're not asking about things like, is this going to, what traffic is this going to? Is it going to a warm list or cold list, affiliates? If they don't, if they're not, by the time the copywriter gets off the call with you, they should have a really clear idea of the market, the stages of awareness and sophistication, of the market. And not every supplement company is going to know what those are, but the copywriter should be able to ask questions that reveal that, right? So, the copywriter has to, again, you want a copywriter who's excited about your product. That has to come through as well. Because if they're just kind of like, yeah, I'm just going to write this. Here's another here's another thing. If they're available right away, that's usually a
Ah,
red flag, you know. So, a good copywriter books up in advance. They're not going to be available, to start the project this week. You know what I mean? So, unless they have, something comes up and they've got an opening in their schedule, but you have to be careful that they're not just saying that, right?
right.
So that's something companies really need to be aware of, is they need to have a bit a runway there, and really be planning ahead. So if you've got a product launch that you want to put out there in 6 months, you got to be talking to copywriters now, to get on their schedule, and then the amount of time it'll take a person to research. If you have a lot of ingredients in your supplement, that's going to be more research. If they're just a handful of ingredients, then it's not a big deal. But if there are 15, 20 ingredients in your supplement, really the copywriter should be looking at most of those, if not all of them. And that's going to take time.
Yeah, that runway is such an important key factor that nobody really thinks about. Everybody wants to copy fast because they want to test it fast.
Yeah,
But when they do that, that suffers. A copywriter could write you could write the copy, in 2 weeks, or you could write the copy in 8 weeks. But I'm sure the 8 week version is going to be much stronger and better than the 2 week version.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm. So let's say you've engaged a copywriter now. What should we expect as far as the process goes?
Okay, yeah. First of all, they should basically send you a list of all the things that they want. So it's the things that they would have, you know, um, talked about during the intro call. So you should, it's really a collaborative process, right? You should plan on arming your copywriter with as much information as you can about the product. You should send them a sample so they can actually try it if it's appropriate for who they are, or if it's not inappropriate. um, um, so competitive promotions that have worked really well already to the list. Any research you have about the audience, so you want to give them. They're going to ask you for, or they should ask you for, a list of information that they want. Then they're going to go off and they're going to start doing a lot of research. All right. Um, and then once they do the research, they'll probably want to talk to the guru at that point. So they'll have a bunch of questions. Um, Sometimes those conversations should actually sound kind of challenging. Like the copywriter should really challenge the guru. Again, make the guru sell you on the product. Because all of this is going to make your copy stronger. So you want to know how they position things, so you have that conversation, and then the copywriter should submit something like a copy platform. So that would be kind of like the overview of, the market, the audience. So you're really agreeing on who the target audience is, what the strategy is for the copy, and then they should include some headline ideas and maybe a rough lead, right? So you basically want to come to consensus on the agreement on the direction that the writer wants to go in before they go off and spend hours upon hours writing the copy.
So there's a
So
back and forth at that stage, right? Where
yeah, absolutely. So then, the copywriter would submit the copy platform, and then get feedback. And again, it could be a few different angles. These are, a handful of approaches that I've come up with, and a bunch of headline ideas. What resonates with you or what doesn't. Again, we're not looking for perfect copy at this point, but just the overall ideas. And then a lot of copywriters will include an outline after that with, then I'll talk about these ingredients and, how to go in the order. Then once you agree on that, well, before we go to what, once you agree, if you don't agree, if there are things there that you're not happy with, you want to give concrete feedback. You don't want to just kind of be like, yeah, no, I don't think that's going to work. You really, like, if someone were to say that to me, I would really dig, why, what is it? Is the tone of the copy not right for your market? Really understand, because again, you want the copywriter to deliver the best possible copy to you, right? So then you agree, whatever the direction's going to be, and then the copywriter is going to go off and do their writing. And usually, I find that even though I've done like a whole ton of research before that point, once I start writing, there'll be some ideas that come up as I'm writing, and I'll think, oh, I would love to be able to say that. Let me see if I can back it up. So there could be some, I would do some of my own research at that point, but there could be some, questions. Like sometimes I'll ask the guru question. So might have a little bit more back and forth before you see the first draft of the copy. So that's really kind of like the overall process.
gotcha. Is there typically a set number of revisions, or that's different for every case?
Well, all right. So when I'm writing for Paris, he gets as many revisions as he wants.
Well, yeah, that's Paris. But like, let's say you're working directly with a client.
Yeah. Then I like to leave it to three. I like to cap it at three, but ultimately I want them to be happy with the copy. So I shouldn't be completely thrown off by their feedback on, after they get the first copy, draft of the copy. So because we'll have gone through the back and forth on the copy platform before then, right? So, and again, it's like the lead, you really want to get that lead, as you want people to be excited about the lead, because that's going to be the most important thing to get people into the copy. Then when you're talking about the ingredients, you can get into more of the science then, right? So so that part, it shouldn't be throwing people off when they get the first draft, provided you've gone through the process of the copy platform.
So if a copywriter comes to the client and says, you only get one revision, that's a red flag.
I would say that's a red flag.
What if they come back and say, you only get one revision because I'm such a good copywriter?
Okay, that's a thing twist on it. Yeah, I mean, look, there are times where clients will they'll want to edit my copy in from like the writing perspective, not like the direction and that sort of thing. And sometimes I will put my foot down and be like, there's a reason why I did it that way. Because they won't know. They don't know what I know, right, about writing copy. So yeah, there are times when I'll just say, listen, you can start a sentence with and as a copywriter. You can.
Yep.
So when you get people who are actually editing your copy, that actually is really frustrating for a copywriter because when you're
Yes.
dealing with someone who doesn't understand how to write direct response copy and how conversational it needs to be, if they're editing the copy in a way that's going to make it less accessible to people, yeah, like we
Yeah, they
don't.
typically kill it at that point, right? Like they're killing the copy and they're taking the punch all out of it. Uh,
Yeah. And if I were to see a lot of times what does happen is you get people who clients who say, okay, they'll accept the copy and then they'll make a bunch of changes to it, and then they tell you the copy didn't perform, and you look at it and you say, well, that wasn't the copy I submitted to you, and you revised out a lot of the things that kill the performance.
the magic, yeah.
Yeah, hire a copywriter and trust them.
That's a really good point, actually. Trust in who you're hiring is really, really key because you're hiring them for that specificity that they're a
Talent.
special.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they know, like, just to the layman, it may seem like these words are we could interchange these words for anything else, but you really can't. Like, there's if you change that one word, it's kind of like a tapestry. Then you ruin the third word because you took out the first word, and you start pulling on the tapestry, and the whole rug falls apart.
Yes, that's a great analogy. I love it. It's very true.
So if those are some things that the client can do to totally screw up the project and make it a fail, right? There's got to be some things that the client can do uh, to make it a success, right? To have the best results with the copywriter that they've
Yeah.
hired.
Right. Well, so it's a lot of those things that we talked about already. So it's making sure you're giving them the best information that you can, the information that they're asking for. Um, so touching on what we just talked about, having a copy chief is really good. So here's actually a thing you can do. So if a supplement company isn't in the position to hire a top tier copywriter to write their copy, they can hire them to chief someone, right, who's not at that same level, right? So that's a way that you can kind of get like this top tier eyes and editing on the copy, but paying a less experienced writer.
That's a great point that's never talked about.
Mm.
How would someone go about hiring a chief?
Well, again, if you know of some good copywriters, and you think you can't afford them, even like in the process, the interview process when you're looking at copywriters, you can ask them. So if it's a top tier copywriter and you're like, either they don't have the time, you have a shorter window, and they can't get you on their schedule for 6 to 8 months, you can ask them, can I hire you as a chief to chief someone else? So you can do that. When you're looking for a copywriter, or a chief, you can go to, my favorite is Kevin Rogers, copychief.com. So he does a great job bringing together marketers and copywriters. Or you could go to AWAI. That's another one where they have, you can post a job there and look for a chief or look for a writer.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, from the copywriter's perspective, that's great because I'm assuming they don't have to do the same level of research. They can just read the copy straight out and look for that like that cub analysis that we talked about, or even provide direction as far as punch and hooks idea. Do they provide hook ideas, or they just like respond to the copy that's presented to them? Like,
It depends on the chief. It's like you know, I can't help myself. If I, if I'm reading something, I'll get an idea for a hook, and yeah, absolutely, because again, you want the copy to perform well. We all do, right? That's what we're all in this together.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. So that kind of leads me to think, okay, so what if I hire a copywriter, right? Maybe they're not A level like you or Paris, right? Or but maybe they're a B level or C level. Um, and I hire a chief as well. What are your thoughts on like letting that B or C copywriter know that their work is being chiefed by so and so? Or should you like not mention it at all and just kind of
Oh no, you
provide?
you should mention it. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, that could be another clue for you if you say to a potential writer, I'm gonna have a chief, and if they you know if they chafe at that, they don't want that, don't work with them. You know, I look, even like the A-list copywriters, they will have other people not necessarily chief their copy, but they'll run it by like I know like David Deutsch and Paris, they'll run copy by each other, and they all do that. So yeah, I mean, I would think a copywriter would be thrilled to be chiefed.
Yeah, it's like an added bonus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you get all that feedback for free. They're paying you and you're getting feedback, actually.
Yeah, you're learning, right? You're getting some training.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That could be a sort of an enticement if you maybe don't have the budget to hire the copywriter. Um, well, if you don't have the budget to hire him, how are you having the budget to chief it? I guess it doesn't quite work.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, again, it's an investment, so you do have to put some money into it. Absolutely.
Is there anything else from the client's perspective that they could do to get better results?
I think be responsive to your copywriter. So when they're asking, for feedback on something, or they've submitted something, don't let it go into a black hole for 3 weeks. You know, um, Copywriters, we're running businesses too. So that's one of the reasons also why we'll cap the number of edits, and we'll also say it has to be done within a certain amount of time, because you don't want to start another big project until you finished one. So you kind of want to get that one wrapped up. So I think that just respecting the copywriter's time is really important.
Does any like top level copywriter or even yourself, you're a top level copywriter also, um, let's say you a standard is 3 or 4 revisions. Do you actually ever get to all 3 or 4 revisions, or is it kind of rare that you even hit the max of revisions?
Yeah, that's rare. That's
Yeah,
rare. Yeah.
yeah. So it's really more of a comfort thing for the client.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But there's probably at least one revision in there.
There usually is, because then also, here's another thing. They've got to put it through compliance, right? So the copywriter is going to do, someone who's writing in the health market, they should be very aware of compliance issues. Now, it's interesting because, I'm sure you've seen a lot of non-compliant copy out there. I know I have, and I'm kind of like, wow, I would never put that copy out there, never submit it, because it's so non-compliant, right? But companies shouldn't rely on the copywriter to write 100% compliant copy and just leave it at that. they should have an attorney who knows what they're doing, knows how to look at supplement copy, and make the call. So that's crucial.
Absolutely. And a lot of standard sort of recommendation for a copywriter is to write the most uncompliant level first and then kind of dial back from there, right? Yeah. Now, whether you show the client that first draft, if you will, or that pre-first draft is kind of up to you, I suppose, which goes back to kind of the conversation that you have with the client to the beginning. Is that one of the questions that are kind of a good question to look for from a copywriter if they ask about compliance or if they just completely ignore it? Or is that something you feel that's any good copywriter wouldn't really ask about it because they kind of know the industry?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at their samples, so ideally, again, they're showing you samples of their work from other supplement companies that they've written for. And you can see, if the copy goes too far and you're not comfortable with that level, so you can ask them at that point, hey, listen, some of this stuff seemed non-compliant. How did that get through? Because people have different levels of risk, risk tolerance. So you've got some companies who are like, yeah, let's push it as close to the edge as we can, and others are like, you know what, I would rather have, if you're a really good copywriter, like a really good copywriter, you should be able to write good, interesting copy that's compliant. It's harder, it's a lot harder, but you should be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where the art comes, right? It's definitely a lot of art involved in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if anybody wanted to go deeper into what we covered today, if they wanted to learn really a lot more of what we talked about, is there any place we can send them? Can they come directly to you?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to pipercopywriter.com. And I actually have a download there that goes into a little bit more about, how to work with a direct response copywriter, and, how to choose them, and that sort of thing.
Excellent. And I'll include that link in the show notes as well. So, if you're listening to this on the audio podcast, you can go there and just click on the link. Nicole, thank you for coming on. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I think we covered quite a bit.
Are you available for copy work if someone wants to work directly with you?
I am, but again, I book up in advance. So if you need something done in 2 weeks, it's not going to happen. And yeah, so and also I can chief copy, so that I'm available as a chief as well.
And they can reach out to you at the same place, at the same URL?
Yes.
Or is there
Or there's just, Nicole at pipercopywriter.com.
perfect, perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you for being so open and honest, for sharing so much. This is a great episode. Thank you.
You're welcome, Bob. It was a lot of fun.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Creative Thirst is a direct response digital agency focusing on conversion rate optimization and A/B testing. We work with dietary supplement companies who are struggling to maximize the profitability of their funnels so they can scale. Through the last 7 years in the online health space, we've optimized many dietary supplement businesses. And in that time, we've uncovered the 3 critical funnels for success. We put together that information in a free digital download called The 3 Funnels Every Health Supplement Business Needs to Build a Multi-Million-Dollar Empire. You can get that free report by going to creativethirst.com. Scroll down to the appropriate section and click on the blue Get Your ebook button.